Did you like the car I gave you as a present last year? My grandfather's voice rang out during dinner, light and cheerful, completely unaware of the storm that was about to erupt. I blinked, confused. What car? For a split second, silence fell over the table like a heavy curtain. My mother dropped her fork. My father stared into his wine, and my younger brother Jacob went pale. That's when I knew something was terribly wrong. My name is Olivia Carter. I'm 24 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the invisible one in my own family, the spare, the afterthought, the girl they tolerated but never truly loved. I thought I had already accepted it. But that night, that single question, it cracked everything wide open. And what came next? It didn't just change dinner. It changed my life. Forever. Growing up, I was never the favorite. That role belonged undeniably to my younger brother, Jacob. He was the golden boy, the miracle child, the center of my parents' universe. 2 years younger than me, and yet somehow always treated like he was wiser, better, more deserving. I remember birthdays where Jacob got new bicycles, tech gadgets, even a telescope once, while I got a card and a polite happy birthday, sweetheart. I remember coming home with perfect test scores, only to hear, "That's what we expect from you, Olivia," while Jacob's average grades were celebrated like Nobel Prizes. I learned quickly, nothing I did would ever be enough. My parents, Elaine and Richard Carter, weren't abusive in the traditional sense. They didn't yell, they didn't hit, but they withheld something deeper: acknowledgement, recognition. Love that felt earned, not obligated. It was a quiet erasure, and in some ways, that hurt more than open cruelty. By the time I turned 16, I had stopped asking for things. I picked up shifts at a local cafe after school, saving for college on my own. My mom said, "It's good for you to work, builds character." But Jacob, well, he never worked a day in his life. He got a new laptop before senior year to help him prepare for college applications. I had to borrow one from the school library. I lived like a ghost in my own home. They never said it aloud, but I could feel it. I was the family's background noise. And Jacob? Jacob was the show. Still, I tried to believe that maybe, one day, they'd see me. That if I worked hard enough, stayed out of trouble, and succeeded quietly, anyone would notice. They didn't. But someone else did. There was one person who always noticed me. My grandfather, Edward Carter. While my parents saw me as a quiet shadow, Grandpa saw me as a flame flickering, maybe, but still burning. He never treated me like I was invisible. In fact, when I was around him, I felt like I was the only person in the room. When I was little, we used to bake together in his kitchen. He'd hand me a wooden spoon twice my size and say, "You're the head chef, Liv." We'd make gooey cinnamon rolls and laugh when flour coated everything, including the dog. In his garage, we rebuilt an old bicycle piece by piece, and he told me stories of how he built his first company from scratch with nothing but grit and a rusted typewriter. But what I remember most was how he listened. Really listened. When I told him I wanted to study international relations, his eyes lit up. "Smart girl. The world needs more bridge builders," he said. He didn't scoff at my dreams. He didn't brush them aside. He tucked them in his heart and remembered them. So, when I was 19 and working full-time just to keep up with community college fees, I was surprised to get a call from him. He was moving to Australia. "Fresh air, new life," he said. "I've got a friend there who wants to partner on a travel consulting business. And Liv, listen, I'm going to keep helping the family, especially you." I was stunned. "Grandpa, that's kind, but I'm managing." "Nonsense," he interrupted. "I know your parents don't support you like they should. I see more than they think. From now on, I'm sending money every month directly to them, with instructions. It's for your education, your future, not a dime should be touched for anything else." My throat tightened. "Thank you, Grandpa." "You don't need to thank me, you just need to keep going. You have something special, Liv. Don't let anyone make you feel small." His words wrapped around my heart like a blanket. I clung to them in the months that followed, especially on nights when I came home exhausted from work and heard my parents gushing over Jacob's new podcast gear, his brilliant social media posts, or his plans to backpack Europe with his friends, all fully funded, of course. Meanwhile, I was scraping by, still borrowing used textbooks, still taking night classes. But I told myself, Grandpa's helping now, it'll get better. Only, it never did. At least not in the way I expected. Not long after Grandpa moved to Australia, things at home started to change, but not for me. Suddenly, my parents weren't complaining about bills anymore. Mom traded her old handbag for a designer tote. Dad started wearing dress shirts with labels I'd only seen in magazines. And Jacob? He practically floated on a cloud of luxury. He got a brand new iPhone for his podcasting project, a DSLR camera to explore content creation, and a paid summer trip to Bali to network with influencers. I remember standing in the kitchen, scrubbing dishes after a 10-hour shift, while they discussed his itinerary over salmon and sparkling water. I didn't say anything. I never did. I was used to being the outsider. But quietly, a question began to form in the back of my mind. Where was all this money coming from? Dad was still working as a mid-level accountant. Mom did part-time floral arrangements on weekends. Nothing about their income had changed drastically, but their spending definitely had. And when I asked, gently, where the money for Jacob's trip had come from, my mom just smiled and said, "Your grandfather sends something every month. It helps with general household needs." I nodded. Just household needs. Not tuition, not textbooks, not rent, not the things Grandpa had said he wanted to help with. At first, I gave them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they were saving the money for me. Maybe they were using some of it now and planning to pay me back. But then came the laptop incident. Mine finally died during midterms. I asked just this once if they could help me buy a used one. Nothing fancy, just something functional. Mom's answer was sharp and instant. "We're not made of money, Olivia." 3 days later, Jacob posted an unboxing video on Instagram of a brand new MacBook Pro. To boost my editing workflow, he captioned it. My stomach turned. They weren't even pretending anymore. Jacob strutted around like a celebrity, new shoes, new watch, even a ridiculous ring light set up in the living room. My parents encouraged it, praised it, poured attention and money into his every whim. And I kept working double shifts, washing coffee cups and wiping tables, trying to convince myself it didn't matter, that I didn't care. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. And worse, I knew Grandpa didn't know the truth. 3 weeks before my 24th birthday, I got a call from an international number I hadn't seen in months. "Liv, my girl!" Grandpa's voice crackled through the speaker, warm and unmistakable. I smiled instantly. "Grandpa, is everything okay?" "Everything's wonderful," he said. "Even better now that I've booked a flight back to the States." I nearly dropped my phone. "You're coming back?" "Just for a bit," he said. "I want to be there for your birthday. I've already made reservations at El Granada, best restaurant in town, they say. I want us all there. You, me, your parents, even Jacob." I blinked. El Granada? That was the kind of place that served steak on slate and had waiters in tuxedos. I'd only ever walked past it, never through its doors. "Grandpa, you don't have to." "I want to," he interrupted firmly. "We've got a lot to celebrate." I couldn't stop smiling for the rest of the day. Not because of the restaurant, not even because of the birthday, but because, for once, someone was showing up for me. Because Grandpa still remembered, still cared. But when I told my parents about the call, their reaction was strange. Dad dropped the spoon he was stirring his coffee with. Mom looked like she'd just swallowed a lemon. Jacob raised an eyebrow and muttered, "Great, can't wait for the interrogation." "Oh," Mom said, trying too hard to sound casual. "That's unexpected." "Yeah," Dad chimed in. "It'll be nice to see him again, I guess." Their tone didn't match their words. There was something off, some tension beneath the surface. "Why are you all acting weird?" I asked, watching their faces carefully. "No one's acting weird," Mom snapped. "We're just surprised, that's all." But for the next few days, the house was filled with quiet whispers behind closed doors, sudden silences when I entered the room, and awkward exchanges about making a good impression. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was imagining things, that this dinner would be a celebration, that maybe, just maybe, we'd sit down as a family, laugh, share stories, eat good food, that for one night, I wouldn't be invisible. I even went shopping with what little I had saved, buying a second-hand dress from a thrift store that still had the original tag on it. It was simple navy blue, soft fabric, but when I looked in the mirror, I almost believed I belonged at El Granada. The night of the dinner, Grandpa arrived at our house just before sunset. He looked a little older, thinner, a touch more gray, but his eyes still twinkled when he saw me. "My beautiful Olivia," he said, pulling me into a hug so tight it knocked the breath out of me. How you've grown. Look at you. I blinked back tears. That hug? It felt like the first real one I'd had in years. And for the first time in forever, I felt like maybe, just maybe, everything was about to change. El Granada was everything I imagined and more. Candlelight shimmered across crystal glasses, soft jazz floated through the air, waiters glided between tables like dancers in tailored black. I felt like I'd stepped into another world. Grandpa had reserved a table by the window, overlooking the city skyline. He pulled out my chair himself, beaming with pride. "You look radiant, Liv," he said, like someone about to take on the world. My parents nodded politely. Jacob barely looked up from his phone. Dinner started off cautiously pleasant. Grandpa asked about my classes, my job. I told him I'd graduated with honors last semester, though I hadn't yet landed a job in my field. His eyebrows shot up. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, clearly both proud and confused. "That's huge, Olivia." Before I could answer, Mom interjected. "She's always been independent, didn't want to bother anyone." I bit my tongue. Grandpa turned to Jacob next. "And you, young man?" Jacob shrugged. "Working on building my brand." Grandpa blinked. "Brand?" "Instagram, podcasts, personal merch." There was a long pause. Grandpa just sipped his wine and moved on. The meal itself was delicious filet mignon, truffle risotto, tiny desserts that looked like art pieces. I should have been enjoying it, but something felt off, tense, like we were all sitting on a time bomb. And then Grandpa smiled, refilled his glass, and turned back to me. "By the way, Olivia," he said, "how was the Civic I sent you last year? Smooth ride?" Time froze. "The... what?" "The Civic," he repeated cheerfully. "Silver, brand new, delivered right to the house. I had the title signed in your name. Happy birthday, remember?" I blinked. I didn't get a car." The room spun slightly. "I thought you meant the cake," I added, my voice hollow. "That store-bought thing on the counter. Mom said it was from you." Grandpa's smile dropped. "What cake?" "The one for my 23rd birthday. Vanilla frosting. You didn't send it?" "No," he said slowly, turning his gaze sharp now toward my parents. "I didn't send a cake." My dad cleared his throat. "Maybe there was a mix-up with the delivery." "There was no mix-up," Grandpa interrupted, voice suddenly hard. "I paid for that car in full. I arranged the delivery personally. It was signed for. Don't lie to me." Jacob looked up, pale. Mom tried to chuckle. "Dad, it's just a misunderstanding." "Stop." Grandpa's hand hit the table, not loud, but firm enough that the glasses trembled. Conversations at nearby tables paused. My heart thudded in my chest. "I want the truth. Right now," he said. "Where is the car I bought for my granddaughter?" My mother faltered. Then, in the smallest voice I'd ever heard from her, she said, "We sold it." Silence. "You, what?" I whispered. "We needed the money," Dad muttered. "Things were tight. Jacob needed equipment, and we had expenses." I stared at them, my stomach flipping. "You stole it," I said, barely recognizing my own voice. "You took something meant for me and sold it." "It wasn't like that," Mom protested. "It helped all of us, even you." "How?" I snapped. "How did it help me?" They didn't answer. Grandpa was livid. His face, once so gentle, now burned with fury. "That car cost me $28,000, he said coldly. "It was a gift, a gesture of pride, of love. You sold it behind her back, and then lied about it. And not just that," he added, turning back to me. "Olivia, that car wasn't the only thing I sent." My breath caught. "What do you mean?" "For the last 3 years," he said, voice breaking slightly, "I've been sending money every month. For you, for your tuition, for your needs. I trusted them to give it to you." My vision blurred. "They never told me," I whispered. "I know," he said, "and I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." The room was still, heavy with revelation. But inside me, something cracked open. The pain, the betrayal, the years of silence, they all surged forward. And I realized, my family hadn't just taken my car. They had taken my future. I sat frozen in my chair. 1,000 thoughts raced through my head, but none of them formed words. Just images. Flashbacks. The times I'd worked double shifts to buy secondhand textbooks. The nights I'd cried quietly in my room while Jacob came home with shopping bags. The afternoon my laptop died and Mom told me, coldly, "We're not made of money." They had taken it all. Not just the car, not just the monthly support, but the dignity of my struggle, the truth of my independence. And now, under the golden lights of El Granada, the mask had fallen. My family stared back at me not with remorse, but with panic. Because Grandpa had finally seen them. All of them. "I trusted you," Grandpa said, his voice quieter now, but more dangerous than before. "I gave you a responsibility. And instead of supporting Olivia, you betrayed her. You used her money to pamper yourselves." Jacob finally spoke. "Okay, but let's not make it overly dramatic. It's not like she didn't benefit from living in the same house." I turned to him, trembling. "You think letting me sleep in a room you ignored is compensation for stealing thousands of dollars?" He rolled his eyes. "It wasn't like that." Grandpa cut in. "Jacob, stop talking." He turned back to me, eyes softening. "Olivia," he said gently, "you don't deserve this. You never did, and I won't let them keep taking from you." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. "I brought this just in case," he said. "It's your plane ticket. One way. To Sydney. Come with me. You'll have a home, a job at my firm, and the life you were meant to have." The whole table went quiet. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear the jazz anymore. "You're serious?" I asked, barely breathing. "As serious as I've ever been." Before I could respond, my mother lunged across the table. "You can't do that. She's our daughter." Grandpa didn't even flinch, and yet you treated her like a stranger. "She's overreacting," Dad insisted. "She doesn't understand how hard things have been." I stood up slowly. "I understand perfectly. You had money meant for me, and you used it to keep Jacob comfortable while I broke my back for basics." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "We're your parents." "You were my jailers," I replied. "You kept me locked in guilt, in silence, in scarcity while Jacob played prince." "I didn't ask for any of this," Jacob muttered. "No," I snapped. "You just enjoyed every minute of it." Grandpa placed his hand on my shoulder. "Olivia, it's your choice. But know this. You don't owe them anything. Not anymore." I looked at my mother desperate. My father red with shame. Jacob sulking, arms crossed like a child. And then I looked at Grandpa. The only person who had ever shown up for me without asking for anything in return. "I'm going," I said, voice steady. "I have nothing left here." Mom let out a sob. "Please don't do this. We can fix it." I shook my head. "You had years to fix it. You chose not to." As we walked out, I heard the clink of glasses and quiet murmurs from the other tables. I didn't care. Let them talk. I was walking away from the people who used me, lied to me, sold my future for a brand-name bag and a vacation. And I was walking toward something real. A new life. The next morning, I stood in my tiny bedroom and looked around one last time. The posters I'd taped to the wall during high school were still there, faded and curling at the corners. My thrifted bookshelf, half empty now, stood beside the window. Everything I owned fit into 2 suitcases. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it finally made sense. I wasn't leaving a home. I was leaving a holding cell. Grandpa picked me up in a black car he'd rented. He carried my bags like they weighed nothing, even though I could tell his shoulders ached more than they used to. When we reached the airport, he handed me my ticket, passport, and a smile. "You ready for freedom?" he asked. I nodded, more than ever. The flight to Sydney was the first time in my life I sat in first class. Thick blankets, hot towels, sparkling water served in actual glass. Grandpa leaned over and whispered, "You deserve all of this, and more." I fell asleep somewhere over the Pacific with my head against the window and a strange sensation in my chest piece. When we landed, I stepped out into warm sunshine and clean air. His house was waiting, not a mansion, but a beautiful modern home with a white stone walkway, jasmine vines, and a view of the sea. It smelled like lemon and books. "This is your room," Grandpa said, opening a door to a light-filled space with tall windows and a queen bed. "I had it redone just for you." There was a desk, a bookshelf, a small plant by the window, and on the dresser, a new laptop with a silver bow on top. I sat on the bed and ran my fingers across the soft quilt. For the first time in my life, I felt safe. Not tolerated, not pitied. Wanted. In the days that followed, Grandpa introduced me to everyone at his consulting firm. He didn't just give me a desk, he gave me purpose. I started as an assistant, but he insisted I shadow him during meetings. "You've got an eye for people," he said, "and people are the key to business." He was right. Within weeks, I was helping with small contracts. Within months, I was managing client communications and writing proposals. Every night, we cooked dinner together like we used to when I was small: pasta with too much cheese, soup with garlic bread, sometimes takeout on the porch. He told me stories. I listened. And I healed. I didn't respond to the messages from my parents. They came in waves: anger, guilt, begging. "We miss you. Come home. You're overreacting." I ignored them all. But late one evening, Jacob sent a voice note. "I hope you're happy. You got what you wanted." I didn't play it again. I deleted it. Because the truth was, I didn't get what I wanted. I got what I deserved. A chance. A family. A life that finally belonged to me. 2 years passed. In that time, I became a project manager at Grandpa's firm, led negotiations with international clients, and helped launch a mentorship program for young women in business. I traveled. I saved money. I adopted a rescue dog named Penny. And one quiet spring evening, while walking by the harbor, I met someone. His name was Maxwell. He didn't ask what I could do for him. He didn't flinch when I told him about my past. He just listened, really listened, and said, "You don't owe anyone an explanation for surviving." We moved in together a year later. Life felt full, simple, real. Then, one rainy Tuesday, my phone rang. Unknown number. US code. I let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes later, another call came. Then a message. "It's your mom. Please, Olivia. Your father is in the hospital. It's serious." I stared at the screen. My chest didn't tighten. My hands didn't shake. Maxwell looked up from the sofa. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, I just didn't expect to feel nothing." But curiosity lingered, like a sore tooth I couldn't stop touching. That night, I called Grandpa. "Do I owe them anything?" I asked. There was silence on the other end. Then, his gentle voice. "You owe them the truth, nothing more." So I called her. Mom answered with a gasp. "Olivia, thank God." She launched into updates: how Dad had collapsed, how money was tight, how they didn't know what to do. Jacob was too busy to help. They were truly sorry. "He's asking for you," she said. "Please, just speak to him." I paused, then asked one question. "Why now?" "Because we're family." "No," I said softly. "You're people I used to live with. Family doesn't steal your future and expect a thank you." She cried. She begged. She promised they'd changed. But I had changed too. "Forgiveness isn't forgetting," I said. "It's letting go. And I've already let go." I ended the call. Then I walked out onto the balcony, where the ocean air smelled like salt and rain, and watched the lights of Sydney flicker below. Maxwell wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Was that hard?" "Yes," I whispered, "but it was also necessary." I looked at the life around me, my career, my partner, my peace, and I knew something with perfect clarity. Forgiveness is a gift, not an obligation. And family? Family is not who shares your blood. It's who shows up, who stays, who believes. Grandpa believed in me when no one else did. He didn't just change my life, he saved it. So no, I didn't go back. I never answered another message. And I never looked over my shoulder. Because I wasn't walking away in anger. I was walking forward in truth. As someone who grew up feeling invisible in my own home, I learned a truth that many only realize later in life. Family is not defined by blood, but by behavior. You can give someone your home, your food, your money, but if you withhold love, respect, and honesty, you are only sharing a roof, not a relationship. My grandfather taught me something powerful in my 20s that many people don't hear until much later. You don't owe loyalty to those who continuously harm you, even if they're your parents. We often hold on to toxic ties out of duty, guilt, or fear of judgment. But peace comes when we recognize our worth and choose people who see it too. If you're older and still holding on to pain caused by those closest to you, it's never too late to choose differently. Let this story be your reminder. Love is shown through action, not titles. If this resonated with you, leave a comment below. We read everyone. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that speak to the heart.